Welcome, everybody, to HR Therapy. It's a spooky season, and we have quite the event for you. If you are joining us for the first time, there is a question on your screen. Feel free to drop your answer in the chat. Just keep in mind, default to, ooh, Tyler, can you change it to everyone? Because it won't. There it goes. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Make sure your drop down carrot says everyone. Cool. And it's a scale of 1 to 5. And I can't wait to see. Also, add any color commentary you want. I'm seeing some 5s. I'm seeing a lot of 3s. I wonder what I would call 3. If 1 is pumpkin spice calm, what's 3? Like, I'm eating a lot of candy? I don't even know. The scale. 3 is neutral, and neutral for me is stress eating candy. Okay. A lot of 4s. Amazing. Welcome to everyone joining us. Also, if this is your first HR therapy, you're surely in for a treat. We're going to spend maybe the next 60 seconds on this question, and then I'll get into the event because we have a lot of fun and juicy things coming up today, and I want to get to all of them. Amazing. I'm seeing some more 5s. Okay, look, I have to be honest. I am seeing less 5s than I thought I would see. Hillary, Kaylin, Sakshi, what do you all think? Less 5s?
Lots of force. Yeah.
Yeah. The ghostly trio.
People don't want to do entirely doom and gloom.
Meanwhile, I'm like 5. It's on fire. I'll say 5 every time. I got a 5. Wow. I don't mean to peer pressure anyone into putting a 5. I'm just commenting that I am surprised about the lack of 5s. Okay, we're seeing some. Ooh, someone's watching Nightmare Before Christmas. Ooh, and thank you, Eleanor, for 3 as a fun Halloween costume because I needed what 3 was going to be. Okay, we're getting into it. We're 3 minutes in. Drop your final questions because I'm going to get to what the heck we're all doing here today. Welcome. My graphics make me giggle. Welcome to HR Therapy. If you've never been here before, just buckle up because you're really in for it. And today's theme is the haunted house of hiring horrors. That's really a tongue twister for you. We're going to get into everything that is making hiring kind of spooky right now. And I hope you realize it's a Halloween theme. Because it's almost Halloween and I love Halloween. If anyone knows me, that's one of my favorite holidays. Okay, what we're doing here today, if you've never been to HR Therapy, this is the rundown. You're going to meet my cast and crew of characters. We're going to do a segment called Dear Hibba and Friends, which is loosely based on a advice column I read growing up that I had no business reading as like an 8-year-old who cared so deeply about etiquette, apparently. We'll take live Q&A. So something you can do throughout this event is drop live questions and we will hopefully get to them and answer them. You can also upvote them. So if you don't have a question to submit, but you feel deeply passionate that one gets answered, please head over to the Q&A and upvote it to make sure it gets answered. And then we'll cover what's next. Before we dive in, just a heads up, this is being recorded. None of your personal info is being shared, but this event in all its entirety, you could rewatch it anytime you want. The chat is a really fun place to be. If you've never been to HR Therapy before, it can be really distracting. So if you'd rather not pay attention to the chat, where I assure you it will be popping off, please just minimize it and put it in the corner and don't pay attention. The last 20 minutes, we will hopefully get to all of your Q&A. So make sure you're putting them in there, any pressing questions you want to answer. Okay, now who are we? What are we doing here? Who's on deck? Meet my lovely cast and crew of characters. Kaylin, you want to kick us off?
Thank you. I'm Kaylin Bailey. Fun fact about me, I'm the only Kaylin Bailey spelled that way on all of LinkedIn. So if you can spell it, you can find me. My career has been predominantly in founding startup talent acquisition type roles, and mostly in the software side of things, although Design Pickle was also a creative services company as well. So I have kind of a unique blend of tech, creative, and software as a service.
I'm now going to run over to LinkedIn and see if I'm the only Hibba Yusuf who spells it the way that I do as well.
It's a really good opener for presentations.
It's killer. I would be so happy. Like, look at this, everybody. You can always find me. Hillary, welcome.
Thanks, Heba. Morning, everybody. Afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. So I'm Hillary Reynolds from Safe Ride Health. I lead the people and enterprise services function for our company, which really just means that my teams keep the lights on, the Wi-Fi working, and the humans mostly happy. My background runs from military to Fortune 100 and to startups where I am currently. And so I've seen hiring wins and hiring horrors from just about every angle. And I, bear with me, have not had much sleep because I had some traveling woes yesterday. So excited to be here with you. Appreciate it.
Me every day being like, bear with me, I haven't had much sleep. Meanwhile, my aura ring is like, you slept 9 hours last night. And I'm like, sorry, everyone, I need more caffeine. I was so tempted to ask like a really fire question like chaos at startups, similar to chaos in the US military, and then thought, not appropriate question to ask. So we'll just say, I feel like you are prepared for anything.
I like to think so, but not always.
Sakshi, welcome.
Hi everyone. I'm Sakshi. I lead marketing at Welcome to the Jungle. I've also jumped around different industries, so started in management consulting, and then since have helped to build a wide range of startups. I've now lived and worked across London and New York, so I can confirm that hiring is equally crazy on both sides of the Atlantic at the moment. And yeah, for those of us who don't know us, we're Welcome to the Jungle. We're a hiring platform used by millions of candidates to discover their dream companies. And we have a simple mission. We're here to help you find your people and hire great mission-driven talent. So yeah, back to you, Heather.
Love that. Also, I signed up for Welcome to the Jungle just to get job notifications, and it was really the smoothest and easiest chance I had to actually send me jobs that I'm qualified for, unlike LinkedIn that keeps trying to tell me I'm eligible for all these jobs that I can never do. It's literally like, "You would be a great developer," and I'm like, "Would I? I actually don't do that, so why would I be good at that?" So, thank you for being here, and big shout out to Welcome to the Jungle. I love working with them, and they are sponsoring this lovely event. They bring, together a cast and crew of people to give you all insight into what's happening in the market. And finally, me, your host, Hiba Yusuf. If you have not met me before, hello, it's so nice to meet you. I write I Hate It Here, host a podcast by the same name, and HR Therapy is my virtual event series that I think has been running for almost 23 straight months. It's an honor to get to spend 1 week or 1 hour a month with you all talking really about what's happening and what I'm experiencing in the world. And I love interacting with all of you in the chat. So thank you for being here, being present, and taking an hour of your day. When I'm not hosting these lovely things, I'm the chief people officer of a media company where we are also ramping up our hiring. And I have one person on my team. So I'm really in the thick of it on any given day. So I can't wait to share with you kind of what we're going through. And now, my favorite part, the segment with Dear Hiba, Kaylin, Hillary, and Sakshi. We're going to get to some really fun questions about what's kind of happening in the market, why it's kind of spooky, why I'm calling it the haunted house of hiring horrors. Say that 5 times fast. And what you can take away back to your teams to help you navigate all that is this current moment. So, my first question I have to get to is why does it feel so hard to find qualified candidates in this current market?
So I have some thoughts here. Happy to share. I think there are a few pieces. One, I think if we look at just from a macro perspective, the market, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So I do think that if people are happy in their current roles, or maybe even just content enough, they're staying. So there aren't as many people entering the market, at least in my experience where we are. And when we start to think about the jobs that we're looking for, we don't have as many candidates, applicants to choose from, but we're also being very particular and looking for unicorns that don't actually exist. And so when we start to think about job descriptions and the types of candidates that we'd like to hire, not only are we looking for people who have skills that maybe are inflated beyond the level of experience we're actually looking for, and so then we have some compensation discrepancies, but we're also running into a lot of AI applicant masking for people who are trying to say that they are able to do the things that we're looking for, but really maybe they can't on their own, right? When we go through coding interviews, for example, with our engineering teams, they look great on paper. They did some things on their own. And then when we go to do the coding test, it's pretty obvious that they're getting some assistance. So I think there's a lot there that needs to be unpacked. And then we also have a conversation that needs to be had on the hiring side as well about, well, let's be realistic about our expectations. What is it we actually need to do the job? And what are we looking for? Can we train someone to do some of these things if they have X versus maybe lacking in Y? And honing in on what's available and playing to the strengths of the market as opposed to feeling like the market is giving us some pressure.
Yeah, I think that all of that plus one, and I just have like such an influx of candidates that for me to even get to anyone who is qualified is just me spending hours combing through our ATS page after page after page just to find one person who's done maybe 3 things that I need in the JD. So I think, like, I've just been dealing with massive volume and, like, people who aren't qualified because I think the latest job report showed, there are more people looking for jobs than jobs available being added. So I think, like, that's causing some pressure and squeezing too. But Kaylin and Sakshi, anything else to add?
Yeah, definitely build on that, Heather. Like we're seeing exactly the same things you've mentioned on our end. So we collect data from like tens of thousands of tech companies, so we get a pretty accurate read on like what's happening in the market. And job volumes fell from their peaks about 25% between 23 and 24. And then this year, there's been maybe like a 5% increase, but we are nowhere near close to like the volumes we were seeing 2 years ago. So I think there are definitely fewer jobs on the market, more candidates looking. I think that paired with people using AI in maybe not the best way possible and like panicking, sending a lot of applications just means there's a lot of noise out there. We did a survey recently and 70% of people told us like they're seeing more applicants come in, and like of those 70%, 40% were saying it's like significantly more. So they are just flooded with applications at the moment. I do think some of it is also a design issue. So like we've seen applications per candidates go up a little bit on Welcome to the Jungle, but on average, people make about 18 applications a year, 1.8. And so I think, I guess the right way to use AI and like just thinking about the right design is actually to try and cut the noise and show people relevant jobs. But instead, what we're finding is people are using the same channels to apply for jobs and then just using AI to send out like 100 different applications instead. So I do think there is a little bit of like starting to use the technology, but not in the right way to solve the problem of noise at the moment.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I've noticed, I just started tracking it most recently, was the amount of applicants that come in the first like 12 hours,
Yeah.
especially for technical roles. And a lot of those applicants can be fake too. If you even get to the qualified ones, you have to comb through, like you were saying, hundreds, if not thousands. And I can't even imagine what it's like for enterprise level companies too. But for me, like my philosophy is always like human eyes reviewing resumes, like me and the teams have been on. And it has been a very significant lift that we're now having to be really frugal about our time and time blocking just to sift through applicants,
Yeah.
which is an opportunity cost against direct sourcing and other things like that. So I'm seeing that in the chat too. A lot of people talking about how the influx has been massive.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with this topic of like the fake applicants. Like so many people are getting not real people applying for the jobs. All of us just like nodded our heads because we've all experienced it, but it has been pretty wild the stories I'm hearing from people about the fake applicants, which those,
I will.
yeah.
I'll go on record and say
Yeah.
that I have hired an overemployed person as well. So like I'm not one of these speakers that has it all figured out. So I've done
Does.
that. I have interviewed people that like are definitely not who they say they are, definitely fake. And it's a very real thing. But it's really frustrating too because we're trying to they're taking away time from us speaking to a candidate that is relevant to the role and can make a big impact. And
Yeah.
it's hard to cut through the noise, but it is real, and I've done it.
I can't remember. Hillary, was it you that was telling me, like, you know, it might not have been you. Someone got on a call recently and it was AI that they were interviewing. Like, it was an AI agent and they were like, what is happening? Like, it wasn't even a real person.
That's really interesting. We've had someone conduct an interview under the guise that they were this person, and then once we hired them, realized it was actually a completely different person on video. So that was an interesting experience that we had to work through on that end too.
Again, I said you were prepared for anything, right? Let me keep going. So we have a few more questions. And don't forget, if you have really juicy questions you want us to answer, drop them in the Q&A. I mean, we talk, a few of us have worked at startups. Like I have done 4 venture-backed startups, and it's always really interesting recruiting in the startup space. So I wanted to focus a little bit here on why do some candidates hesitate to join early stage startups, and how can brand storytelling actually ease those fears?
Yeah, I'll jump in. The last two companies I've been at have been startups, and one of which I was at for 5 years, so that I saw it through seed all the way through Series A and Series B. Um, it's I think there's hesitancy because the reality is a lot of startups don't make it to they actually don't make it. But then also we do meet people that are really keen to join startups because I think what you can do at a startup is really build things. Like I love this idea of a founding role that I've seen on job posts now, like founding product marketing manager, founding. I even saw founding recruiter. I thought that's so cool. Um, so the story that I've always tried to represent is being honest and transparent about that sometimes it's chaotic. You have to require a lot of adaptability. I really index on behavioral competencies because you're probably not going to find someone at a startup that has done everything you want to do in terms of that growth. But when I pivoted and started talking about like what is the opportunity to build, we all want to come away from every job, every experience with a body of work that we can represent for the next thing or for the next opportunity. So the story when you're talking to a developer, a product person, or founding sales role, like is look at what you can do here if it all goes really well, but also be very, very transparent about the risk. In some ways, I say I'll try to talk someone out of the job. Um,
So
and I don't actually talk them out of the job, but I'm like, hey, this is like what it's really like here. And I also offer you can talk to anybody at the company that will help you get to the point where you have everything you need to make the decision if it's right for you. Um, and then they can decide to opt in or out.
yeah. I think it's so now I've done 4 startups. It is hard, I think, at times to find people who are, like, excited by that challenge because I think there's, like, so much unknown with startups, and, like, we're human beings and we want the known. And it's like, no, like your role from when you start to when you leave a startup can also look dramatically different. And so when I talk to candidates specifically about coming to work week, I'm so honest. I'm like, hey, we look really like great on paper, like the experience you're having also really great, super thoughtful, really built out. That might not be the case for every single process we have at the company. So if you are comfortable with a little bit of ambiguity, oh, I hate the phrase, but I use it a lot, flying the plane while you're building it. Is that the right? I butcher phrases all the time. I'm like, that is what you're getting here. Like, there are things that we don't know. We will make pivots, things will change. And I think when you're able to share that level, it honestly like gives the candidate ease. But it is, I have seen people in hiring processes that are like, I don't think this is for me. And it's simply like that unknown that really is not comfortable for a lot of people. And I think especially where a lot of startups have not made it this year and have experienced layoffs, I think it's really hard for startups right now to convince people like this is where you should be when the numbers show that like tech and startups did so much cutting this year.
Well, every place is at risk right now. I mean, there
Exactly.
is no certainty anywhere across the entire marketplace. I mean, um, if you in my opinion if you do take a risk to join a startup, I don't think it's any less risky than joining another type of company because there's so many market signals and economic indicators, or there's things that are playing into the job market currently that feels like it hasn't really been there in the past. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden all of these things are happening in the world really impact the job market. So I'm a big pro startup person.
Same.
And I think that if you can come out of that startup experience, just think about how adaptable and you can. There's a lot of startup lessons that you can learn that you can then take into other organizations. And larger organizations, like they may have an individual business unit that operates at like a startup too. So um, to be somebody that comes away with like truly foundational early stage experience, I think is really critical.
I think
Yeah.
there's benefit also, and one thing that's really helped us is over the last few years, we've really tried to lean into what that employer brand is and what we want it to be to tell that story. So on social channels, out in the community at certain events, if it's a local organization, if it's national, what conferences would make sense to attend and go to, and how do we tell our story? And we're a mission-driven health tech company, right? And so how do we link what our purpose is and how you can feel like you are purposely providing and working towards something and align that to the fact that I know we are a startup and it's a little uncertain, but oh, by the way, we've done all these things. We're sharing all these stories. We're getting recognized by these outlets. You can have a comfortable work experience with us. And oh, by the way, you're going to have a profound impact on the future of this organization because of the nature of where we are and what our size is. And so I think some of it is being able to help them feel like they can really add value in that organization as opposed to being concerned and scared of the risks of doing so. So I think a lot of it is really highlighting the reward versus the risk piece so that their risk appetite is I guess met or not exceeded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think to build on Hillary's point, I definitely think the mission is really important. Like if you're a startup, by the nature of your business, you are disrupting something. And if you are disrupting something, you need people who are creative, lateral thinkers, like happy to take ownership. And so you do need people who are bought into your mission. So I think that storytelling around what is a problem you're solving, what is your POV on it, like what are you doing, that's definitely is really important, and getting people who are bought in when you're making those early hires. And then I think the second point is, whilst there is uncertainty with startups, to Kaylin's point, there is uncertainty everywhere right now around the world. But I think you can still show things around your company that are, still attractive for candidates. So I think like showing the kind of responsibilities you could have, showing people in your current company who've had that career trajectory where they've like moved from one role to another role, showing some of like the working culture and the practices, like how you make decisions, how you empower people. I think all of that can really help contribute towards attracting the right people. And it's okay if people who aren't right for it opt out, right? Like I think startups aren't for everyone. So it's actually just more about sharing the right stories to bring the right people in through the door.
You like want them to opt out. Like 3 years ago, we really struggled because we had like no employer brand. Like Workweek was less than a year old. Our jobs were just like not getting visibility. Nobody knew who we were. And we spent a lot of time working on like, how do we tell the story of who we are as a company so that we are able to attract people? Because I think like if you are a startup with like no employer brand, it could be really hard for people to even find you. Right? Like, how do people even find my career page? Like, everyone knows how to find Amazon's career page. Like, everyone knows how to find like traditional, but nobody, some people might not have ever heard of my company. So, like, that leaning into the storytelling, I think can really help. Somebody in the chat asked, like, they have never worked at a startup before, or I found that a lot of startups want previous startup experience, but how do you show transferable skills if you've never worked at a startup previously? I know I've had plenty of adaptability in my roles. I've built up programs, but I don't have that startup on my resume, and I fear they're passing me by. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point, and it is a catch-22. I mean, I think that like demonstrating the behavioral competencies are like critical for. I'm a big competency-based hiring advocate. Um, Objectively, you have to meet some of the baseline functional competencies. If you're a product person, you have to have done product things. Um, I think one is really demonstrating like uh especially in an interview scenario when you have the opportunity to speak and verbalize it, is talk about different times you had to adapt and iterate and change. Like those are all things that a lot of startups are looking at, because startups are going to try to stretch as much as they can out of a person to get what they want. I do think a lot of roles do that, but um, the other thing too is like storytelling really works both ways. And hopefully in a resume or cover letter, like I still like cover letters. I like really creative cover letters of how you've actually built something. I mean, because every company, whether you've been in a startup or not, like you're still taking on projects, you're still driving initiatives, and these are all things that are transferable. I suspect that the hard part for the individual that asked this is getting that first conversation though, um, which is tough. Um, I will say though too, like like to follow on the last point, like employer brand goes beyond just like digital assets and like the visuals. Um, Employer brand is also how you conduct yourself through the interview process of transparency and honesty about the process. The same is true for candidates. Like so you want that to be mirrored on both sides. I didn't want to let that thought go.
I love that. Include the thoughts. Sorry, Hillary, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, Emma. I would just want to kind of piggyback off of what Kaylin was saying, in that the storytelling does kind of go both ways, but I think it can be very important. It's not necessarily what company you've worked for, it's the type of roles you've held and your approach to work. And if you can make it show up and be visible in your resume or your cover letter, although I'll be honest, I think in a 300 applicant uh, job posting, I probably see 2 cover letters now. Like, it's just not a thing. So kudos to everyone who submits them. I think they're amazing. It's just probably not a very common asset these days. And so what I would say is you really need your resume to stand out in a way that exemplifies that you've been in transformational, builder, optimizing, fast, like the speed and efficiency and process building is key, I think, for the startup environment. So it's less, I'm in a well-oiled machine and things are moving and I'm managing and I'm leading my team and I'm raising risks and mitigating them. It's more of a like, this didn't exist before. They hired me, they brought me in, they gave me this project. We built this huge, amazing thing and we did it this fast. We refined it these many times, and this is the ROI that we caused. And oh, by the way, I loved it. And then I moved on to a new project because I was bored and that was done. And I want to build, I don't want to maintain. So I think that's going to be critical for folks who don't have startup experience who would like to move into that realm.
I can add one more thing from my experience. So, when I like my first job after I graduated was in undergraduate admissions and at the college I went to, and then I in later career I worked in college athletics, and I always just talk about writing with strong I statements, not we statements. Like it's likely that any company, let alone a startup, is not going to hire your entire team. So like this is the time that you can really talk about yourself in a positive way. So like with college essays and entrance exam or entrance essays, we always talked about I statements. Like it's you that the college is going to admit. It's you that the company is interviewing. Um, and there are very few times in your life when it's like encouraged to really talk about yourself and flex.
Yeah.
So I always talk like strong I statements. That's a big thing too.
I love that. And the last thing I will add, like plus 1 million to everything that is being said so far, is to Kaylin, you talked about like agility. And I do think like agility as a competency area for the future is really important. It's what I think will redefine HR and HR leaders in general is being able to adapt to the world because we have seen massive amounts of change in the last 5 years at a very condensed time frame. And so if you're really keen on joining a startup, I think leaning into the agile, like I've shifted, I've pivoted. Here are the things we've changed. Here's what happens when I encountered a challenge, a roadblock. Like here's how something completely changed because the business pivoted. That skill set I think would be excellent to display. That was like the last thing I wanted to add because I'm assuming we're going to see massive amounts of change in the next 5 years just from like the last 5 years of what we've been through. So I think if you really want to work at a startup, think about that competency area as well. And plus 1 to the I statements. We oftentimes say we did this, but you're right. At startups, we're hiring you specifically to do that. And I need to know that you have done that thing, not we. Okay, more questions, and then we will get to live Q&A. What are some red flags that signal a role is cursed, maybe doomed to stay open forever? I had to sprinkle this in here because everyone talks about time to hire, and I do feel like some roles are cursed. Not mine personally. What do you all think?
I agree. So I think this goes back in part to some of the unicorn hunting that I talked about before. So if we look at a job posting and it's so specific to you must be in this region, you must have this level of experience, you must have done this in this niche industry. And oh, by the way, I want to make sure that you have 6 years of experience working with this client, right? Like I think there are very unrealistic expectations and something that is opened like that, no matter how many, conversations we would have with the hiring manager about maybe we should think about what we would like to have versus what we must have. In addition to that, though, there's also the interview and hiring process itself. And so if we are unable to keep their engagement or we take too long over and over and over and over again, we're going to lose a lot of client or applicants. And so I think what we've experienced is that some of the roles that have stayed open the longest, they've been primarily technical roles because we're putting them through too many hoops to be able to prove that they can do the things that they're saying that they can do. And then we want to match their culture fit. And then we want to assess whether or not they'll get along with this group of people. Or maybe we really wanted them to have this experience, but they have that experience. And I think there's an element there where we need to take a step back and say, okay, so what can we do without? What can we do with basic knowledge and help them grow as we're moving forward? And how many different hoops do we need to actually have in order to determine whether or not this is someone who's going to provide us value? Because at the end of the day, every week that we go without this role being filled is that much productivity that would be lost where we could have already brought them up to speed if we were willing to look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. We always encourage companies to post the process up front, like the hiring process. So you'll meet X person for 30 minutes to discuss why, and then this is step 2 or step 3. And so we do that ourselves internally because you need to also stay true to what you advocate to others. And I found actually often those conversations of like, as soon as you're like, we need to publicly talk about like this is what the hiring process will look like, it forces alignment. Because like by building in public, you're like, actually, wait, it does look crazy that we have 6 steps here. And so I think that is like a way of just stress testing your internal processes to make sure like, are you happy advertising this alongside your job description? And if you're like, feels like too many steps, you can probably cut some down.
Yeah, we do that in our hiring kickoff. So, like, when we finish the hiring kickoff with the hiring manager, I'm basically like, this is the hiring process. I'm telling exactly this to the candidate. You cannot add or change anything, is like our rule. And we very rarely, one time in the last 3 years, have added an additional step. And that was only because nobody asked the right questions, even though I assigned them the right questions. So, that was a process. We fixed it, but we lock it in at the very beginning and refuse to add anything after we communicate it to the candidate. Can.
I see a lot of people talking in the chat, like they're just seeing hiring manager, hiring manager, hiring manager that doesn't know how to hire. That is so true.
Sorry.
And to add to that, like that's where I think talent acquisition is like we're seeing a lot more roles that are called talent partner now, and I think that's where like the partnership really comes in of like guiding these people on how to hire. Because if a company is taking more than I'll say non-executive level, if it's more than 4 rounds, like it's the internal problem, I think. And then you're just adding people to find reasons to not like somebody. So that's why I'm really trying to advocate for this talent partnership kind of mentality versus recruiter sourcer, like the more traditional, historically traditional names. But I also think that compensation, like I've sometimes LinkedIn, you see people post screenshots of like wanting an MBA and paying $20 an hour or something like that. Or so like there's that side of it too internally, how it's represented, and if it's even worth people applying and going through the process.
Yeah, I love this idea of talent partnership because I always frame the recruiters as like, these are your experts, just like you would go to like a product marketer or like a growth audience developer, like just like you would go to those people. This is the person who is the most well versed in what this process should be and how to get you the best outcome. And so even coaching I give to like my recruiter is you are the expert. If you feel a certain way, if you think something is wrong, if you think a candidate is not going to work, like you are the person I would trust over any single person hiring this person because that is your job as the partner to them. And so it's a really interesting like give and take where I feel like sometimes recruiters aren't empowered and then or aren't treated right by their partners, and then a lot of red flags enter the hiring process because the recruiters aren't given the respect or authority that they actually deserve.
I swear that the partner term is like um, really important because like we're also able to we have empathy with the job seeker because we're front and center with it all day,
Yeah.
every day. And with teams I've led and in individual contributor roles, I've always been like to a hiring manager, like this does not make sense from a candidate experience standpoint. Like you're gonna make it look like we did not have our what together. Like 7 rounds will do that for sure. So that's where like we have to push back. The same way, like you said, like a marketing person is going to understand their audience way better. So we understand the audience, and our customer is the candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We forget we're all customer facing to a certain extent, right? We have to think about that end experience that they're having. And like I always like to tell candidates, especially because again, startup hiring, like out of respect to you, I want to treat you right and make sure that you get everything you need out of this process because you're taking a chance on coming to also work here. And that like that trade to me is kind of one of the most valuable things. It's a currency almost, just to get the candidate to trust you and want to take a chance on coming to work at your org and add value. And I think like out of respect to them, they deserve a hiring process that is not absurd. Like if you're again 7 stages, I'm like, I don't executive level, I think can be more stages. But I do also think like if you're taking 7 stages to decide an entry level or mid role, something is wrong with your process and your role will stay open because people will see through it now more than ever. Okay, 2 more questions and then we'll get to live questions. So make sure you're putting them in there. We've been talking a lot about AI. It's been in the chat. We've talked a lot in here. Like, where can AI actually automate and help reduce the fear of what's happening in the process without losing the human touch? Like, I want the humanness to stay in recruiting because people are at its core.
It. I have I'll say something. It's probably going to sound a little bit more like
Ooh.
uh, uh, like okay. I think that it's never been easier to be a memorable, good recruiter. Because I mean, I just came back from a huge event in Nashville last week. Maybe some of you were there. You can automate everything, literally everything. All the vendors there, it was amazing. You can automate everything. But what I started my presentation with is you can automate and make those things really easy, but the analog moments are where you are going to absolutely stand out as a recruiter. Um, Picking up the phone and calling somebody all of a sudden is now something that like we just don't do as much anywhere. But that's like some of the 90s style recruiting where you're calling people and like all of a sudden that makes you different now. Transparency, um transparency to the process, the compensation, the benefits, like all these things. Where you can actually like really automate things is like most ATS systems have stage actions or triggers. So I love building out stage actions that will send these, like it almost becomes like a nurture campaign for a candidate that's in your funnel.
Yeah.
But like I call them surprise and delight moments. I took it from the book Be Our Guest. It's about Disney's customer service model, and like little moments where every time you talk to somebody verbally, you share a bit of feedback from the conversation they had with the hiring manager. You share like a positive. So you're building this like you're building out these things. So I'm big on a high touch human recruitment process. I'm very big on automating things through the stages that get you the opportunity to talk to people more verbally in person or virtually.
Love that.
So similar to Kaylin, we are starting to pilot AI interviews. And it's been wildly fascinating in a very promising way. And so what we've learned is through these interviews, it's almost like we can conduct the screen, but in a way where we're incorporating not just the recruiter's questions, but some of the initial hiring manager screening questions as well. So we have to, I think the point of a lot of folks in the chat, and then also as we talked about before, we have a hiring kickoff call, and we will be very prescriptive about inputs into this AI interview and what we would want the interviewer to be asked. Because honestly, AI, the output is only as good as the input. And so if you are very specific about what you're trying to find, what you're trying to validate. We've used them for some of our more technical roles, and we can not only screen for some of the HR screening questions built in, but we ask them technical questions, and the interviewer is able to determine whether it feels as if they are leveraging AI in order to answer some of those questions. It tracks their eye movements. It'll determine based off of previous questions they've answered whether or not their answer is actually within their depth and breadth of suggested experience, and it'll flag it for us. And then at the end of it, the candidate feels like they're having a two-way conversation with a recruiter, we're getting an analysis of that interview with strengths and weaknesses and opportunities based off of the questions and how they answered it. And then we're able to go back and synthesize that, review the interview if we're curious how it worked out. And it takes and saves us hours of time, both on the recruiter side and on the hiring manager side. And it's introduced to the candidate in a way that says, hey, we are a tech company and on, the edge of innovation, we're trying to embrace AI. And so part of that is we'd like to introduce you to our technical recruiter who happens to be, Alex, for example, is the name. Look forward to reviewing your interview and we'll be in touch soon. And so they're knowing that we're sending them this something. It's a person that's sending it to them. We're talking about the fact that it's a tech company or a startup. We love these things. Show us that you can handle those too and you're interested in it, engage in it in a way that makes sense and answer our questions. And then it's saving so much time on all ends. And it's a better experience for the candidate too, because they're getting feedback immediately also. So it's something that's really cool. And I'm very excited about seeing where that goes.
I'm going to need to pick your brain about that separately outside of this event because I'm very curious about that. Yeah, somebody asked what the product was called, and I was going to ask that same thing. You'd have to.
I don't know if I can share that or not.
I don't-
but
No.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to talk one-on-one off of that too.
For sure. I will find you and we can talk about it. I love that you just shared that use case because I think everyone is like, use AI, use AI, use AI. And not everybody has thought through like what are the impacts or implications of us using AI. So I love that you all are testing it, like piloting it, looking at the outcome of it. Kayla, I love that you talked about automation so that you can actually spend time with the candidate. I once had a recruiter, and I do not recommend this, but she loved doing it. For her top like finalist candidates, she would text them. She would always have their number and send them text updates, check in with them, do 15-minute calls throughout the day if they wanted to talk. And every single person would give us feedback that she was the best recruiter they had ever worked with because of how high touch she was. And she would automate all of the emails and spend the time actually following up with the candidates and like playing the in between the hiring manager and the candidate. And so that has like been my driving force on leveraging AI. It's like I don't need to be the person to send the email that's like, here are the times people are available. There's a way that can happen without me needing to send 15 emails. And instead I can focus on what is the right profile for this? Is it this person? What are the next steps? Like, how do we get them feeling really good about the role, the manager, the team, all of those things that I think are the really important parts of recruiting. Like the human at the end of the day is like the thing that we have to treat so well because that's our client. Sakshi, anything to add before I head to our last question and then we go to Q&A?
I was just going to add the third point. I think we've discussed using AI automation to like elevate the candidate experience by automating things. We've discussed it to save time. I think the final is actually using it for insights. So like you basically have a highly analytical tool at your fingertips. So like some of the things we're seeing is like the kind of analysis people might be doing is where in your pipeline are people dropping out? Does that differ by gender or ethnicity or like type of role? How does that benchmark against your peers? Like where in your hiring process can you start to drive efficiencies? And I think it just gives access to a lot of analytical firepower that recruiters can also use to like elevate their recruitment processes. So I think that's like the third way I think we can be using AI is just to like make better decisions and have more information to make those decisions.
It's like a data analyst at your fingertips. Like, look at all this historical data of how many weeks it took me to fill this role. Like, what is that going to tell me about average fill time for? Sometimes I just talk to AI like with these types of questions, and I find myself going down a million rabbit holes. But I love that use case too, that it can provide you a lot of data and helpful insight into improving your process too. Final question, because I know so many people are already asking, like, what are some tools out there that we can use to help us find candidates and make this process just better overall, make the recruiting process better overall?
So I'm happy to jump in here. I will say that we love Welcome to the Jungle. Just put that out there briefly because it's been very helpful to match one-to-one with a lot of our tech roles specifically.
Yeah.
Folks that may or may not be interested in a good fit. So we've also got a lot of success with platforms like LinkedIn and some of those other job boards that are more broad based and far reaching, but we have to really be careful and diligent about our brand storytelling there. Because otherwise, why would they even click on it? Or are we going to get an applicant who really wants to work with us? Or is this just someone who needs a job and they're firing off their resumes? So we're finding some nuances there. But candidly, I would say 60% of our longest tenured hires are employee referrals. We are
Wow.
wildly successful with our own networks. And as we've gotten bigger and as we've scaled, those networks get bigger. And so when you think about far reaching tools and platforms, all of those omni-channel resources are helpful. But ultimately, it's because our networks are seeing what we're posting. And they reach out and they ask questions. And we've found that if you're able to articulate the culture to one of your friends or family members or a friend of a friend, they're more willing to trust, and goes back to some of that. There's risk with startups. Why would I do that? They've got a true validation point for them, like in the flesh, as to why this would be a good move for them. So that's been very helpful for us too.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, uh, I think when I was at Design Pickle 1 year, we hired 50 people for our HQ team, and half of them actually came through Welcome to the Jungle. And I think somebody mentioned it, I forgot who, but anytime I'm gonna add a tool to the tool belt, I'm gonna test it as a candidate first. And that's for any platform, any tool I can. So I signed up for to be a candidate on there as well.
Fun.
But I think a lot of ATSs now are adding in-app tools that help with sourcing or integrations and things like that. Those definitely help, but um, I have to plus 1,000 on the referrals. We have referral bonus programs, and that's where the social side of LinkedIn is helpful in terms of the multiplication of the output. But I would say that that between Welcome to Jungle and LinkedIn, those are two primary for us.
Yeah, we're LinkedIn as well, and I signed up for Welcome to the Jungle as a candidate and saw that, like, the jobs that it was feeding me were quite relevant, and I was like, "I need to go check this out as an employer," because our biggest thing is, like, finding qualified candidates. I have not candidly leaned into a referral program, full speed, because we have found in the past, I found that, like, a lot of our candidate referrals tended to be from the same groups as our existing employees. And as part of trying to build a very diverse and equitable pipeline, like, I have gone out and sourced. I spend a lot of time sourcing candidates to make
Mhm.
sure that we are getting people outside of our normal reach. Like, that has been a big thing for us. Like, we'll take a referral here and there, and our employees will post the jobs. Like, they'll post our jobs for us on their networks, and we'll see what comes from that too. But for me, I have found that, like, I have to go out and source a lot of our jobs.
I'll caveat by saying anytime there's a referral in the pipeline, even if it's like a referral from the hiring manager, I'll say, okay, we're going to run a process though.
For sure.
We're going to run a fair, equitable process. We're going to see what's out there because I don't know what the right term, like you might not be able to see the forest for the trees. Like
Yeah.
you're so focused on that one person, but maybe you talk to someone else and you find out what you do or don't want. So 100% always running a process, and it's ultimately their decision, but our job as talent acquisition partnership is to provide a strata of candidates, of backgrounds of all types.
Yeah.
So still run a process um, even with a referral.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Sakshi, anything to add before we head to live questions?
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Okay, so if you've been posting questions in the live Q&A, you can upvote them. I'm going to the live Q&A now to get my answers. Okay, we have, make sure you're upvoting them because I'm going to answer the top ones first. I see. Okay, no one's voted. If you're wondering where to go, there's the Q&A button on the side. If you can't find it, let me know. Okay, so we have this question. I'll start here. How do you hold the hiring managers accountable for not supporting with the hiring process? I work for an organization where the hiring managers never communicate properly on updates, and that ends up in wasting the candidate's time.
I see why that was asked anonymously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you all think? How do you hold the hiring managers accountable?
So I think.
Well,
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead, Kaylin. No,
I
you
was
go
gonna
for it.
say,
We're
I
all
was gonna
ready.
say,
We're like,
'cause it's,
let's go.
I mean, I was gonna say because it's their ass on the line, right? Like they own the hire, they own the fire, right? No one wants to have to fire people. You could go through uh, um, tons of data sets about the cost of a bad hire. I mean, like we're trying to make their lives easier, but setting expectations at the very front, like I think Hillary had said that, and I'm sure she's going to speak something like that. But setting the expectation up front, everybody wants to win, so um, you have to have that kind of buy-in, and we can make it easier for them. I think we talk a lot about the candidate experience. I like to talk about the hiring manager experience. Like, how can we like plate this out for them where it's so easy for them to submit feedback? Where like everybody's a little bit different. So like, what can we do to set time, like periodic check-ins, like run it like a sprint, like a product team does, and constantly checking because we have constantly have to iterate, and then you're putting things on their calendar. And if they don't want to communicate properly and updates, you kind of have to, I hate this term, but meet them where they're at. Like figure out, like I will totally cold call a hiring manager. I will totally drop time on their calendar to say, we are in this together. I'm here to make this as easy as possible for you as a partner. Um, but setting the expectations up front is probably the best way to start it. And then ultimately remind them like it's their role. We're trying to help them.
Off that. Hillary?
Yeah. And so, Kaylin, to your point, everyone loves to win, right? And so I would say, one, you set expectations up front, but I think two, everyone also hates to lose. Maybe not everyone, but I would say most people do. And I do think that there's an element, one of my favorite sayings, my team is probably rolling their eyes right now, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink, right? So I think that there is some merit, and it's an unpopular opinion, in letting them fail. I think sometimes a hiring manager needs to fail. And so I worked with one relatively recently, not acutely recently, but they had a hard time filling a role, and there were several candidates that were hired, and within 3 to 4 months they were let go because it just wasn't a good fit, and they could not figure out why they were hiring the wrong candidate. And so I said, "Can I please see your workbook? I would love to know like what the feedback was when you guys were asking these questions and what your notes said." So I looked at them, and we're all the hiring experts here, right? Like you said, you would go to product marketing for marketing your product. We're the hiring gurus. I opened the workbook, just as I'm sure anyone on this call would, and I very quickly saw what their answers were to some of these behavioral questions, and I knew right away why they weren't a good fit. But it was a pattern that was repeating. And so what I did was you need to communicate with them in a way that they're going to receive it. And so I put the workbook into Chat GPT, because we're talking about AI, and I said, what would you predict could be some challenges we would have with an employee who met or answered these questions in this way? And what would you predict some of the blind spots or areas we would have issues with would be? And it spit back out almost exactly verbatim what I had told them I saw right away. And so it was a really interesting exercise for both of us, I think, because one, it was like, well, look at that. I kind of know what I'm doing, which was, nice because you don't always get that. But then two, he was able to see at that point in time, like, I'm not just telling you this because I want to hear myself talk. I'm trying to help you. So help me help you, take my advice. And these are the things we should be looking for so that you find someone that you love and stays. And we haven't had that issue going forward. So I think sometimes them realizing that they're not doing something the right way and it being very big and big marquee headlights, like this isn't going well, is the only way that you get them to understand that it's time to be held accountable. So I don't know. That's just my perspective there.
I love to win, but I bleeping love, and I told you so. And that's like the biggest I told you so flex, Hillary. That's awesome. And great use of AI.
It wasn't the intent, but it was helpful for them to be able to see it because they couldn't figure out why. And then it was like, oh, okay, fine. Like, got it.
I know, but our internal monologue is that like we know we had an I told you so, but we guided them appropriately, right?
It's a coaching moment for sure.
Yeah.
I love an I told you so moment too. Like I would be offline being like, I told them this, they didn't listen. I'd lose my mind. On holding hiring managers accountable too. Like my note here is I do it in the kickoff call. Like I will walk them through what we're looking for. Like, we'll work with them together. I'll be like, here's what we don't want to hire. Then I will talk about timeline, because I think timeline and accountability go hand in hand. And I've had hiring managers before be like, well, I'd like to hire this person in 3 weeks, but I'm also on vacation for the next 2. And I have been like, in what reality do you think that I could hire someone in 3 weeks when you are on vacation for 2 of those weeks? So, like, my kickoff calls where I lay out the hiring manager's responsibility, it's actually, like, in the kickoff form too, where it's like, "This is your responsibility as the hiring manager. This is your responsibility as a panelist on the interview. This is our responsibility as the people ops team," and that's, like, the first page of our kickoff form, and as we are rolling up this role, I'm always referencing back to the form. I'm like, don't forget you agreed to this. Don't forget that's not what we're looking for. Don't forget that candidate doesn't have any of those need to have qualities you said they have to have. So why would I hire them if you just really like them? So I think like my form of accountability is get it in writing and then continue to like reference it every single time that any sort of question comes up. So everyone is aware of that expectation. Like calling back to the expectation setting that Kaylin talked about. Absolutely. And showing up with any historical data, like Hillary said, plus 1 million, because you got to show them that they're wrong. Every hiring manager thinks everyone thinks they're better at hiring than anyone in recruiting. It's mind boggling to me. I'm like, you literally know nothing. You are a kindergartner. We are graduates. You listen to me. That's how it works. So actually anything to add, or I have another question queued up too.
I was going to say, as someone who is a hiring manager, I love it. Like, I love it when you have a clear kickoff and you're like, yep, these are your responsibilities. This is what's expected of you. So I think actually it works really well for both sides to just have like, yeah, a very clear set of things that I'm accountable for as a hiring manager and the timelines I need to do it at. They're like, tell me what to do as the expert. So that is
Yeah.
great.
And then there's a few questions about hiring kickoff. So Hillary or Kaylin, anything to add on? Can you talk about like your hiring kickoff steps and how you align those expectations with managers? I feel like I just shared a little bit about mine, but I'll let either one of you add anything too.
Go ahead, Hillary.
Okay. We actually just refined ours now that we're leveraging the AI interviewing tool also. So it's an optional tool if the hiring manager chooses to use it or not. But we schedule about a 45-minute call, depending on the complexity of the interviewing capabilities. And we'll very quickly review the job description. We'll talk about, okay, this is what it says is required, what's really required, what is a like to have, should have, must have. And then from there, we start talking about what that persona looks like with the hiring manager. And so when we're sourcing or having conversations with candidates, or if we send them that interview tool, the inputs are what generate the outputs. So you give us as much information as you possibly can. Let's talk about what questions we need to ask. What are you trying to find out? How many interview rounds are there? Who are the interviewers? Do we have a rating scale? And it's all in this like 5-tab workbook in Excel that we just leverage throughout the whole process. And then that way we also have a historical, to your point, have a documentation of every step of the way, every interaction, and then we go from there.
Yeah. Kaylin?
I don't know about other ATSs, but most of my experience has been in Greenhouse, and Greenhouse makes it really easy to customize competencies, but even competencies per interviewer.
Yep.
But I actually like the ability to either assign an intake form. My preference is to walk through the one that Greenhouse has. I mean, I can't really add anything above and beyond what Hillary said. That's great, but the prep call is absolutely critical. One thing that I like to do as well is like, because I'm like big on assigning people tasks, is like you get to in an ideal state, in my ideal state rather, you get to a point at the end where you like the hiring committee is like in a team call, and you can point and say, Hillary, your focus area was this. Talk to me about this. Sakshi, your focus area was this. So it's like very specific, and then that's like driving that level of accountability. I totally get sometimes you have to do that on Slack or Teams or whatever, but like actually assigning things to people in a focus area, they're going to want to perform for the hiring manager too if they're an interview panelist. And same is true for the hiring manager. They know their team is focused on specific areas.
I love that. We are at time. I got too excited by these live questions and I don't want to keep anyone any longer, but Thank you so much to the panelists. A quick what's next, a survey. We'll share lots of info in the after event email. So keep an eye out for tons of great resources being shared there, as well as our LinkedIn profile so you can connect with everyone else. This has been truly lovely. I have to say thank you to Hillary, Kaylin, and Sakshi for adding so much value to this conversation, sharing all the things you've been through, the things you were doing to navigate the very spooky hiring market we're all in, and for spending an hour of your day sharing your expertise with all of us. And a big thanks to everybody who attended today. Thank you for spending an hour with us, sharing your insights in the chat. We're so deeply grateful for this community we've built where we're all trying to help each other navigate these wild times. So a big thank you to everyone. And my final thank you to Welcome to the Jungle for being a wonderful partner to work with, for letting me bring my friends to these conversations and sharing a ton of great resources with this audience. Everyone's saying thank you. And Hillary, people want your 5-tab workbook.
Well, I can't take the credit for building that out, but I'm sure we could share it as a resource.
I love that. Thank you so much to everyone for today. This has just made my day, as it makes my day every month. And thanks, everyone. I'll let everyone go because we're a minute over. So thanks for spending an extra minute with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great day, y'all.